Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, too, would like to rise on a point of personal privilege and begin by thanking Representative Chairwoman Serpa for making such an impassioned speech. I concur wholeheartedly with the sentiments and facts that she just presented to this chamber. I'm taking exception to a particular portion of the editorial that was included in today's Projo, and I'll just read specifically what it says. In referring to me, the editorial says that I ran last year's notorious study commission that cherry-picked data to make a spurious case against charters. It also referred to me as being larded, which I've not been called before, so I might otherwise take exception to the use of that word. But this is now at least the third editorial that we've seen in the Projo that attacks the data that was used in last year's study commission. And what I thought was curious at the time last year, and I still find curious, is that the data we used was data presented to us by RIDE, and that was the only data that we used. And I made that case on the floor last year. But what makes me get up and speak again today, and I almost thank the editorial board for giving me the opportunity to do so, is that since last spring and today, the governor has impaneled a fair funding formula study commission of her own. That commission was staffed by RIDE, and the materials that were put in front of that commission for their consideration was material presented by RIDE, including data related to the disproportionate expenditure burdens between charter schools and traditional school districts. And so I thought it would be instructive if we looked at the data that was used in the House Special Study Commission last year and compared that data to the data that was used in the governor's study commission that is just now concluding its work. And so I had the pages placed on your desk today, a couple of things. The first thing is issue brief introduction is how it's titled. Looks something like this. This is from the second meeting. And if you flip quickly to page 3, what you will see is data presented by RIDE that compares those expenditures borne entirely by local sending districts and not at all by charters. And on the flip side, those expenditures borne entirely by charters and not at all by traditional school districts. And what you see is that, as was said and reported by the House Study Commission last spring, traditional school districts are entirely responsible, at least under FY14 expenditure data collected by UCOA, for out-of-district special ed placements, retiree health benefits, 18 to 21-year-old post-graduation services for disabled students, preschool early intervention screening and remediation, non-public obligations, meaning textbook support for parochial schools as well as transportation to those schools, and career and technical education. That is a $1,295 per student expenditure burden that is borne by traditional public schools and not at all borne by charter schools. Below that, you see an accounting of those expenses borne entirely by charter schools and not local traditional school districts. And you'll see debt service at $510 per student and rental costs at $430 per student for a total of $940. That is a 37% difference, with the traditional public schools being responsible for 37% greater expenditure burdens than their charter companions. This data entirely bears out the Study Commission's data from last year. I would suggest that there are some things that were cherry-picked from this Commission's report, namely special education expenditures. What our Commission looked at last year was the extent to which local school districts serve a greater proportion of high-cost special ed students versus the high-occurrence but low-cost special ed students that might be characterized by a slight speech impediment or a single learning disability. That was not captured in this data, is not factored into the 37%. However, RIDE does include that in a subsequent handout to their commission. And I've put that on your table as well. And what this shows is the difference in per pupil special education costs by district. You can find your district right on there. The top is East Greenwich, and the bottom is the Village Green Academy. And you will see that this is color-coded. All of the blue schools are traditional public schools. All of the yellow schools are charters. And I think if you look at this, you can see quite clearly where the distribution lies, with charter schools very much at the bottom of this expenditure burden, in addition to the 37% differential that's explained in this here. So I would commend the editorial page to go back and look at the data, compare it to the data that the governor is using now, or the governor's commission is using now, and you tell me where the difference is, and you tell me who's cherry-picking to make a spurious case. I thank you, Madam Chair.